The next side of the cube we're going to talk about is the money side of the cube. And I'd like to start off by telling you the story of John McCormick. Now, we briefly talked about John McCormick previously in this audio series when we talked about Visible Changes and Visible Changes University. Just to give you a bit of insight into John McCormick, I'd like to tell you his story because it's a very, very powerful story, and it teaches you the importance of the power of mentorship, meaning having a mentor and how a mentor can really accelerate your success in life. Well, John McCormick's father and grandfather had both been policemen, and his brother was a priest. So he had two options. Since he found it difficult visualizing himself living a life without a woman by his side, he opted for the first and went to the police academy. One day, John got a call. A local deli in Brooklyn, New York was being held up. So three guys were in there, and John went in and managed to talk the guys out of shooting him and arrested them. That day, while he went home, he was pondering about what had happened to him that day, and he realized that he had really risked his life because these guys could have easily pulled the gun on him and killed him. So he decided to leave the police force because he didn't think it was worthwhile risking his life every day in, day out, for just a few $1,000s a month. So John went into a little business venture selling Christmas trees on the street with his brother. They did well and made about $3,000 each, and with that money he invested it in the stock market and turned it into $100,000 in a very short time. John was then hired as a stockbroker by an agency in New York, and in less than a year his $100,000 had become $1 million. He got so big-headed that he started doing things like buying two limousines, one for his friends and one for himself, and within 3 months he had lost his $1 million and borrowed $250,000 and lost that too. At this point, John had hit rock bottom and decided to go to the beach to do some soul searching, and while he was there, an old man of about 75 approached him and said, "A ship, a ship. You'll have to go to the dock if you want to get your ship." He introduced himself to John as Abe, and they started talking, and John told Abe his story. After this, Abe asked him if he had about $50 and challenged him to race to the pier. John accepted, and Abe gave him a sack to climb in, blindfolded him, and made him jump backwards all the way to the pier. John got mad, raced, and lost. Abe didn't want the $50 and told John to go home and think about the lesson he had learned. And the lesson basically is that if you can set the rules, you can win the game. From that day on, Abe and John sat down every day to talk, and Abe asked John if he spoke English and if he had had an education. He told John to think of the immigrants who had arrived in America without knowing anybody or the language, and yet today they were millionaires. Abe told John that for the next 3 years, if he studied and worked with these successful immigrants, he would learn from them, and John followed Abe's advice and found the role models that helped him become successful. Today, John's company, Visible Changes, has been on the front cover of Inc. magazine and quoted as one of the best small businesses in America. John's business is focused on motivating his people and making them successful. In return, he too is successful. John learned to ask himself the right questions in order to become focused. He then went out to look for role models to learn from. In a nutshell, to become successful, John associated with successful people. So, it's really, really important to create and find a number of mentors, a number of people that can really help you to achieve whatever you are aiming to achieve. The power of mentorship is very, very important. The other thing that I've come across is that of building a mastermind alliance. And basically, this idea came from reading the book written by Napoleon Hill, his actual classic called Think and Grow Rich. And in this book, he basically talks about how he created a mastermind alliance, which is made up of a group of people which would counsel him every time he had to make an important decision. The interesting thing about it is that he didn't necessarily have to know these people, and that these people could even be people that existed 200 or 300 years ago. Now, it's not some far-fetched idea, but basically what he would do is he would study the lives and read the biographies of these famous people or these successful people, and then he would imagine how they would react and how they would decide in certain situations. And so he would imagine every time he had to come up in his life with an important decision to make, he would imagine he was sitting at this table and he was running the idea past all the members of his mastermind alliance, and that they were actually coming up with ideas and giving him some wise counsel as far as what he needed to do to move the project forward. And this is actually called the Mastermind Alliance. Now, I too have in my life decided to create a mastermind alliance, especially when it's to do with money. And I noticed that there's a lot of negative programming out there about money, and that's the reason why there's a lot of poverty out there. Now, I basically nail it down to two streams of thought. There's the tribal thought and there's the prosperity thought. So, for example, the tribal thought is, oh, rich people are snobs. while the prosperity thought would be poor people are snobby and arrogant. Why would we say this? So tribal thought would be things like rich people are snobs, rich people cheat, it is spiritual to be poor, the rich get richer, you've got to have inside information to get rich, or star athletes and CEOs are paid too much money, or those who have more than you should help you. Now, these are basically these tribal thoughts are, and they don't generate prosperity in someone's life, because it's like being a victim more than anything else. As we discussed before, it's focusing on the outside and not focusing on the inside. While prosperity thoughts will be things like poor people are snobby and arrogant, rich people are kind and empathetic, poverty is miserable, poverty is a sin, and interestingly enough, in Aramaic, the definition of sin means you are missing the mark. Then other things like ideas cure hunger and poverty, communism is a sin and creates poverty, the rich get richer, and this is a natural order of things. You got to think different, money is God in action, ideas create prosperity, big bold ideas find money, and help those that are worthy of help. So if we want to tie all this up, basically, the difference between the rich and the poor is not so much the money they have, but it's in the way they think. There is a mindset to acquiring wealth and maintaining that wealth. In the Bible it says that, and this is the important thing, it actually says that it's the love of money which is bad. Not money, but the love of money. Your goal in life is to acquire money so that you can give a better life to your family, you can give them better vacations, you can educate your kids better, they can learn more languages, learn more skills, learn more things, develop their talents in the best possible way and stuff like that. Use your money to help poor people, to maybe create a foundation to educate poor children and stuff like that. So if you're using your money to serve society and to help your family and society, well then your focus is a good focus. It's not a bad focus. Now, I was on a course a few years ago held by a guy called Randy Gage, and it's all about developing a prosperity mind. Now, Randy is a multimillionaire, and he's made his money in network marketing and then invested it in property and a number of other things. And he's also a very sought-out motivational speaker on the speaker circuit around the world. And I met Randy in London, and he went through this day seminar. And one of the things he was telling us, he said, now, he came over on Concorde. This was a few years ago when Concorde was still flying, and he said he was in the Concorde lounge at New York Kennedy, and he was sitting there working on his laptop, and at a certain point he needed to go to the restroom. So off he went to the restroom, and he left his laptop there with his wallet. And in his wallet he had some cash and his American Express and other credit cards and stuff like that. So he came back, and there was his laptop and his wallet and everything. And he said, now what would have happened if I had left my laptop on a bench in the London Underground with my wallet, gone to the restroom and come back? Well, obviously his laptop wouldn't have been there and his wallet wouldn't have been there. Now the question is, why was it when he was in the Concorde lounge that he could with no problem leave his laptop and his wallet there and then come back to find them still there, while the same thing wouldn't happen on the Underground in London? Well, that's where you need to think. So when people turn around and say that rich people are evil, rich people are thieves and stuff like that, it's actually not true. And if we look at a study which was done in the States by a guy called Thomas J. Stanley, he's written two interesting books. One is called The Millionaire Next Door, and the other is The Millionaire Mind. Now, in The Millionaire Mind, he basically has interviewed all these millionaires around the United States. Now, consider this is done in the US, but I find it's applicable anywhere in the world. Now, he came down with these millionaire success factors. And this is the interesting thing that he discovered. Now, I'll rank all these success factors just so that you can think about them, and this will help you to develop a mind of prosperity. Now, the first thing on the list is being honest with all people. Being well disciplined, getting along with people, having a supportive spouse. So this thing about millionaires having 5 wives is not true. Yes, maybe it's true to a certain extent, because most of the millionaires you hear about are the ones on TV, and they're the ones with 3 or 4 wives and so many divorces and kids all over the place, and this one suing them and that one and whatnot. But if we go and see the real millionaires, the ones that you don't hear about in the press, well, they actually have a supportive spouse, and they actually usually been married once in their lives. The other thing is working harder than most people, loving their career or business, having strong leadership qualities, having a very competitive spirit and personality, being very well organized, having ability to sell their ideas and their products, making wise investments, seeking opportunities others do not see, being their own boss, willing to take financial risk, giving the right return, having good mentors, having an urge to be well respected, investing in their own business, finding a profitable niche, having extraordinary energy, being physically fit, having a high IQ or superior intellect, specializing, attending a top-rated college, ignoring the criticism of detractors, living below their means, having a strong religious faith, being lucky, investing in the equities of public corporations, having excellent investment advisors, and graduating near or at top of their class. Now, consider the fact that the graduating top of the class is at the bottom of the list, so that is not fundamental. It's all the other things which are important. Now, another study to back this one up that I've found is one done by a executive search firm in New York, and this company is called Korn Ferry International. In conjunction with the UCLA School of Management, they did a study on 1,362 vice presidents, men and women, who were aspiring to the president's chair. Now, the reason why I'm quoting this study is because, okay, we looked at the millionaires. Now let's look at people which aren't at millionaire status, but they are well off. And let's see what characteristics they have. Well, these people, their average income was $215,000 a year. They spent average 15 years working with the company, who had the highest paid jobs and had 2 or fewer jobs in their lifetime, and they were loyal to their company. Now, this study was done a few years ago. It's done about 7 or 8 years ago. So we're talking a study done in about 1998. Then 87 were still married to their one and only mate. 92% were raised by 2-parent families. They said that integrity was the most important ingredient to their success arsenal. 100% said that hard work was necessary. But I'd like to add here, in certain cases, hard work also means smart work, not necessarily working 20 hours a day, but working in a smart way. 89% had 2, 3, or 4 children or more. 71% said that if they had more time, they'd spend it with their spouse. 50% would spend more time with their children. They worked on average of 50 hours a week, and 89% of them were religiously active. So this is painting the picture of these people with money. They're not people that betray their wives or husbands. They're not people that go out there stealing money and stuff like that. They are honest, hard-working people with sound principles. So this is important. So next time you see a guy drive past you with a Porsche and a Lamborghini, and don't ask yourself, I wonder what bank he went and robbed to get the money to buy that Porsche. But ask yourself a different set of questions. Wow, that guy's driving a Porsche. I wonder what business he's developed. I wonder what things I could learn from this person so that I too could develop a business, so that I could afford to have my own Porsche and drive a Porsche. So it's that kind of mindset. It's looking at these successful people with money and seeing how they did it and taking it from there. Now, a lot of people say, well, he was lucky. Well, let's look at the word luck. The word luck actually means labor under correct knowledge. So what we need to do is we need to focus on the correct knowledge. We need to study the correct knowledge. And this is where mentors and the power of mentorship, as I discussed before, can help us. Let's find those people that have this millionaire mindset, and let's tune in to this millionaire frequency so that we too can manifest prosperity in our lives. But the way I look at it is, people generally travel for business or pleasure, but as soon as there's a glitch in the economy, people stay at home and in their offices, and pilots are laid off by the airlines. And this is how I got into this, because I've been laid off by airlines in the past, and because there's been glitches in the economy. And being a professional pilot, the money that I earn as a professional aviator is very good. It's happened in my life when I wasn't doing other things and just doing the flying, that when I got laid off, I found it very, very difficult. So I came across a number of books and a number of people that were running courses on developing multiple sources of income. And this really opened my mind. And one of the books I've mentioned previously was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And in this book, he mentions these multiple sources of income because he said, today, you have to have more channels of income because the job market and the workforce has changed completely. Once upon a time, you used to be able to join a company at the age of 20, work all your way through and up the ranks until the age of 60, and then retire with a nice gold watch and a nice pension. Well, the Central Bank of America actually said, don't worry about pensions because in the future there aren't going to be any. So what does that mean? That means, once again, we need to take responsibility. We need to take responsibility of our financial literacy. So we have to learn about money, and we need to find out as much as we can in order to be able to become prosperous. Now, prosperity is a very interesting subject, and the meaning of prosperity, and if we look at the Latin root, it actually means to be in the flow. Now, we are in the flow when we are thinking right, talking right, acting right, eating right, and living right. We set this mechanism in motion that enables us to manifest prosperity in our lives. Money is an important part of prosperity, but only part of it. There are unhappy people out there with lots of money, and we see quite a few of them on TV and read about them in the papers. They are rich in monetary terms, but they don't have prosperity in their lives. On the other hand, there are lots of poor, happy people, but they too lack prosperity. So we need to be in the flow, and like all things, this takes time to study and apply in our lives. So what I have done is I've decided to make prosperity part of my studying, and I have decided to incorporate in my Mastermind Alliance some people that are very good at mentoring me in as far as prosperity is concerned. And these people are Bob Proctor, who's a famous writer, author, and also entrepreneur. There's Randy Gage, there's Robert Kiyosaki, and there's Harv Eker. If you go onto the internet, you type these names into any search engine, they'll come up with their websites, and you can go on their websites and have a look and see what kind of work that they have developed. And these people have very, very interesting insights into money management and prosperity, etc., etc. Just to give you an idea of how I've applied this in my life, I'd been out of work for a few months, and there was this Randy Gage course I mentioned before, and I went down to London to see Randy's course on prosperity, and that made me realise that prosperity in reality was almost like a frequency of the mind, and that I needed to tune onto this frequency if I wanted to solve my financial problems. Well, as a result of this, within 3 weeks, I'd found a job which offered me double the salary I was earning before. I managed to sell my house and buy another house, and as a result of all this, I paid off all the $30,000 debt, moved into a new job with a higher position, more money, better lifestyle, and I'm 100% sure that the reason for all this was because of my mindset. And inside this story, another interesting thing happened is we needed to sell our house. Well, we didn't even need to put it on the market, because we were going to put the house on the market, I remember, on the Wednesday. On the Tuesday, friends of ours knocked on our door because they were looking for a house in the area. And they said, can we have a look at your house again? Because we'd like to buy a similar house. Now, they didn't know that we were going to move, because I'd only just been offered this job. Well, as a result, they looked around, and then my wife, Sylvia, turned around and said to them, well, actually, we're going to put the house on the market tomorrow. Oh, really? Are you? Oh, well, we'd like to buy it. How much is the house? And we already knew more or less the value. Well, we closed the deal. So we avoided the estate agent's fees, or the real estate guy's fees, and we sold the house literally within minutes. And I'm 100% sure that all this has happened to us because we changed. And when I say we, so my wife and I, we changed our mindset. We started to look at money as a thing that can serve us and serve other people, and create this mindset, and to study this material in order to develop that mindset on a continual basis. Because that's the other thing. There are people that in life make a fortune and then they lose it all and they end up on the streets. And that's because they had this millionaire mindset and then they lost it. So it's not only a matter of acquiring the mindset, it's maintaining the mindset. And you do that by studying this material, by associating with people that are like-minded, and just helping you to stay tuned on that frequency. Now, money is not so much what you do, it's what you think. And the way I always like to look at it is almost as if there's a radio out there called Radio Prosperity. And what happens is, like in the room you're in right now, there are radio waves going through the room. But in order to listen to what's traveling on these radio waves, you need to tune in. You need to have a radio, and you need to tune into the right frequency. So when you switch your radio on, if you want to listen to classical music, you've got to tune on to the classical music channel. If you want to listen to the news, you've got to tune into the news channel. Well, it's the same with money. If we want financial independence in our lives, and if we want prosperity in our lives, what we need to do is we need to tune on to this frequency. And one of the things we need to do is we need to stop thinking that money is a bad thing and that people that have money are bad people, because in reality it's not true. And the other thing you have to think about is that if you really want to make a difference in the world today, one thing you need to have is money. And I'll give you an example. If, for example, if we look at the recent thing that happened in Asia, this tsunami, which basically washed away a lot of homes and a lot of people died as a result of this thing. I think it's more than 250,000 people lost their lives. But it's not so much the people that lost their lives, but it's the loved ones that they left behind. There are children with no parents anymore. There's families with no fathers or no mothers. Now, these people are going to have some financial problems. Now, what happens if I have a lot of money, or if you have a lot of money, what can you actually do is you can actually make a difference in these people's lives by sending them aid and by helping them and stuff like that. So it really does open up so many more opportunities to you if you have money to be able to help other people. The important thing is that the love of money is not your focus, is that you have to think of money as a way of helping other people and helping yourself and helping other people and making the world a better place. Now, just to tie everything in, before we close this section on money, it was about last year, I just had this idea through my head. I needed to call this guy that was in aviation college with me, and I hadn't spoken to him for about 10 years, so I didn't even know if when I rang the phone number that if he was going to be there. So anyway, so I rang his parents' home, and his mother gave me his phone number, and I rang him and had a chat, and he asked me, "Oh, what are you doing these days?" And I told him, "Well, I'm flying. I'm an airline pilot, and as well as that, I've written a book and I'm setting up my own company and stuff like that." And I said, "Oh, how about you?" He said, "Oh, you're flying. Oh, great. So what do you fly?" And I said, "Well, I'm flying Boeing 737s." And he said, "Oh, fantastic. I would have really loved to have been an airline pilot if only I had had the money." Now, interesting thing is this guy, when we were in aviation college, he was top of the class. I was a class about 25, I was probably like number 6 or number 7, and he was number 1. And then what happened? When we graduated, we needed to get our pilot's licenses, and that was obviously something that was going to cost a lot of money. And everybody applied to get to their respective air forces or to get sponsored by a major airline, because at the time airlines were sponsoring people, so they would pay for all your training. So I tried the Air Force and I tried the airline sponsorship route, but neither of the two worked out for me, because they said that they weren't going to sponsor me and they weren't going to hire me. So the only way I had, if I wanted to pursue the path of the airline pilot, was to generate the money myself. So basically what happened here is I asked myself a different question. And Robert Kiyosaki says, the rich invent money. Now, I didn't have the money to become a pilot, and neither did this guy in my class have the money. So he said to himself, I don't have the money, the Air Force won't take me, the major airlines won't sponsor me, I'll have to go and do another job for a living. And it finished at that. While I said to myself, okay, the Air Force won't have me, the major airlines won't sponsor me, how can I find the money? So I asked myself a different question. I thought in an unconventional way. Now, in closing, I'd like to leave you with this quote from T. Harv Eker. Now, Harv Eker is one of these people that teaches people to develop a millionaire mind and the psychology of money. And he's very, very good. And I'd really invite you to listen to some of his audio programs or even to go to one of his live seminars, because it's very, very powerful. And Harv says this. He says, there is a secret psychology to money. Most people don't know about it. That's why most people never become financially successful. A lack of money is not the problem. It is merely a symptom of what's going on inside. So that's what we need to do, is we need to develop this mindset. We need to say to ourselves, if there's certain things that we would like to buy, there's certain things that we would like to do, and that requires more money than what we have today. The question is, how can I find the money? How can I generate the money? And it's ideas that bring money. It's not money makes money, it's ideas. if you have the right ideas and you work these ideas with motivation and that, you will find the money. I was motivated. I wanted to become a pilot. This was my dream when I was a little boy. I dreamt of flying these airliners and flying these passengers from A to B. This was my dream, and I wanted to go after this dream, and I could feel the desire to achieve this goal, this dream, and that's what drove me into asking myself the question, how can I find the money? So it's not so much skill that's required, because when I was in college, this friend of mine, he had more skill and more ability than me, but I had more motivation. And it's the motivation and the desire that drove me to making this dream reality. So I invite you to go out there and study the subject of money, and remember that if you have lots of money, you can help lots of people, but more than anything else, you can have a fantastic lifestyle and give a fantastic lifestyle to your wife, your husband, your family, your kids. And this is really, really what drives me. It's having the possibility of giving a fantastic lifestyle to your family, and by doing that, helping other people do the same. So I invite you to have a look at this subject and make it a lifelong study of developing a millionaire mind. Now, the next side of the cube I'd like to talk about is the health side, and I'd like to start with a quote from Thomas Alva Edison, which is actually the inventor of the light bulb, but he had interesting insight here into health, and he said, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame in diet and in the cause and prevention of disease." And this is really basically the basic philosophy of health that I've developed throughout the years. And what I'd like to talk to you is about how my wife and I came into looking into natural health and what we've discovered and what we've actually implemented in our lives. Now, let's go back a few years. I got my private pilot's license before my driver's license, and like every pilot, I started undergoing a full medical checkup once a year. I would observe the 50-year-old captains sweating while they waited, afraid that the doctor would declare them unfit to fly. I must say, a lot of these guys didn't look very healthy and were overweight. I then started to ask myself why these pilots weren't very healthy. Well, pilots go up and down between 1 to 6 times a day according to the type of flying that they do, and the cabin is pressurized at 8,000 feet, which means that your body experiences going from sea level to 8,000 feet all these times in one day. In addition, the air in the cabin is very dry, and this too isn't very healthy. If you're flying long haul, night freight or night charter flying, you're messing up your biological clock. Now, flying at 35,000 feet, you also get hit by a considerable amount of cosmic radiation, and if you go higher, the amount can increase exponentially. I can imagine that exposing your body to this kind of stress for 30 years doesn't do it much good. While flying, pilots also eat crew food, and that isn't the most nutritious of foods. You're probably asking yourself, why on earth would anyone choose to be a pilot with all those health hazards? Well, my motivation lies in the challenge and beauty of seeing the planet from above and flying into different parts of the world. The view from the cockpit is absolutely wonderful. I also noticed that environment has an effect on human performance. The key lies in creating a proactive attitude towards one's health in order to perform. The next bit of information I'm about to give you will make you realise what kind of things you need to do in order to have good health. So these were the considerations that I was giving myself as I started my career in aviation. Then 6 years ago I got married, and Sylvia and I started our life together. And Sylvia was doing an apprenticeship as a herbalist in a herb store, but at the same time Sylvia was suffering from kidney pains. And one evening she had a particular strong kidney pain, and so we went to the hospital, and they did some tests on her and that, and they prescribed some antibiotics. The next day I went out to the pharmacy to buy these antibiotics and brought them home, and we read on the instructions and that, and there were all these side effects, and the side effects were just going to cause this, that, the other. And we weren't too happy for Sylvia to take this. So anyway, I said to Sylvia, look, I think what best thing for you to do is to call Roberta, which was Sylvia's boss at the herb store, and ask her if there was any herbal remedy. So Roberta said, well, Sylvia, what you really need to do is you really need to change the way you eat, because 95% of health problems are caused by the way you eat. So Sylvia said, well, I'm not eating anything unhealthy. He said, well, you've got to do a number of things. First of all, you've got to stop eating meat. Second of all, you've got to stop eating dairy products. And third thing you need to do is to do a bowel cleanse. And if you do this, you'll find that your problems that you're having, your kidney pains, and also Sylvia was suffering from arthritis as well, you'll find that these health problems that you have will disappear. So this entailed eating in a completely different way. because being half Italian and my wife's Italian, we like our pasta, and on pasta what you usually put is cheese, and we also like our pizza, and on the pizza you put cheese as well. So what we needed to do is we needed to find different ways of making our pasta and our pizza without cheese. Now when I say cheese, I mean cheese that comes from animals. So cheese which would be from cow's milk and stuff like that. Well, we discovered there are other cheeses out there which can be made, and you can actually make cheese from nuts. So we looked into all this kind of stuff, and a whole new world opened up to us. Now, I say us because when Sylvia decided to change her eating habits, I thought it wouldn't have been a good idea as a husband in supporting my wife to turn around and say, well, I want a nice big fat steak with some cheese while you eat your vegetables, sort of thing. So I said, okay, well, I'll go along with you and I'll eat whatever you eat, and I'll follow the program and I'll change my diet as well. Well, at the time, I was actually losing my hair, as that happens when you turn 30. Usually men start to lose their hair. Well, interesting thing is, if you look at photos of when I got married 6 years ago, you'll see that I was going bald on top. Well, I'm no longer bald on top now, and my hair has actually grown back, and that is quite an unusual thing. And the reason being is because I'm no longer using dairy products or meat and that. Now, obviously, I'm not declaring that this is a scientific fact. I'm saying that this is a result of stuff that we have studied and consequently applied in our lives, and these are results that we're getting. I invite you to do your own research, and I invite you to do your own experiments. You'll find results. So Roberta basically introduced us to this new world of natural health. From there, one day I came back from a trip to the UK, because at the time we were still living in Italy. I brought Sylvia this health magazine. In this health magazine, it talked about Dr. John R. Christopher. Now, Dr. Christopher was born in Salt Lake City in 1909, and he was one of the pioneers of herbalism and natural health. His philosophy is that 95% of health problems are nutrition-based. He's also formulated cures for nearly every illness you can think of. He too suggests a vegan diet and eating lots of sprouted seeds. Most of his work is based on the Bible and American Indian medicine. Dr. Christopher set up a school in Utah called the School of Natural Healing. This school runs a master herbalist course you can do from home anywhere in the world, and it basically teaches you to cure any illness and live a very healthy life. So Sylvia decided to enroll in this course and become a master herbalist. As a result of this, we've learned a lot more stuff about natural health as well. And all three of our children, both Benjamin, Ellen and Nike, they're all growing up basically on a vegan diet. And it's just amazing to see how healthy they are. And as a result of being healthy, they're also very bright because they're not using anything sugary, they're not eating dairy or meat and that. And they're very, very bright kids. And not because they're my kids, but a lot of it is to do with the way they eat. So why should we avoid eating meat, and why should we avoid eating dairy products? Our organs have been designed to heal themselves, but it's up to us to get them optimum functioning. It wasn't easy to start with, but as our bodies gradually cleansed, they started to perform better and gained energy. Colon cleanse and parasite elimination was stage 1. We discovered the colon is the most important organ in our bodies, so it's vital we keep it cleansed. To do this, we use a special herbal tea and prune juice, combined with some nutritional supplements. This kept us sitting down on a particular something in the house for 3 days and consuming rolls and rolls of toilet roll. But at the end of it, we had a surge of energy and more mental clarity. It was an awesome experience. The next step was to develop healthy eating habits. This is because most diets prescribe eating a certain way for a few months to get the weight off and or eliminate your ailments. But then you get back to your old habits. Incidentally, it's bad eating habits that give people bad health. So some people start changing their eating habits gradually, but we've come to the conclusion that this is not the best of systems. Changing your eating habits radically will bring results sooner that will motivate you to continue. During the cleansing phase, our symptoms got worse and we had a lot less energy. The reasons for this was our bodies were using up all the energy to get rid of the toxins. So as far as food goes, the main thing we did was to stop eating meat. The reason behind this is that the human intestine is very long compared to carnivorous animals. Therefore, meat remains in the body for a considerable amount of time. Meat is practically a dead substance, and if it's left outside, it rots. That is what happens when a human eats meat. Meat contains parasites and all sorts of other toxic stuff, which develop in the intestine, causing all sorts of illnesses. In the animal kingdom, the strongest and longest living animals are all herbivorous. For example, the gorilla and the elephant. Going back to the human world, most of the cultures with the longest longevity, such as the Hunzas, the Aborigines, the Seventh-day Adventists, and the inhabitants of the Ninja province in China, are all vegetarians. Next thing we threw out of the window were dairy products. Cow's milk was made for baby cows, like mother's milk was made for baby humans. One of the main causes of earache and runny noses in small children is cow's milk. It was not designed for humans, who take 20 years to grow into an adult compared to the 2 years it takes a cow, and at considerable different paces. Well, after a few months without cow's milk, my hair actually started to grow back. I got colds a lot less frequently, and I didn't feel tired so often. If you want to really check into the subject of milk, a good book to read is Don't Drink Milk, written by Dr. Frank Oski. So what do we eat, and where do we get our protein from? Well, Sylvia and I eat lots of organic fresh fruits and vegetables and sprout lots of seeds, which we eat and drink. We came across the work of Steve Meyerowitz, commonly known as Sprout Man. This guy started drinking wheatgrass juice and sprouting seeds in his apartment in the middle of New York to help him get rid of his allergies and asthma. You can check out his website at sproutman.com. So we've started to do the same thing, and basically our food now, it costs a fraction of the cost of what it cost when we used to spend all our money in the supermarket. And if you walk into our kitchen, it looks like a botanical garden. And Sylvia likes to call it our little jungle. The other thing we did is we installed a reverse osmosis system in our kitchen in order to filter out all the chemicals and minerals from the water. And now we also have a water distiller. And basically the reason for this is that the human body is not able to process the minerals from mineral water. That is done through plants. Plants have the ability to process the minerals and through photosynthesis to present these minerals to the human body in a way that the human body can assimilate it. But if we just keep drinking mineral water, our body is not capable of assimilating the minerals from that. So what we should be drinking is pure water. So you either can get a reverse osmosis system installed in the house, which is connected to the tap with a filtration system, which filters out most of the stuff. Or if you want to take things a step further, that's buy yourself a water distiller and distill your water and drink that, and you also use it for cooking. The other thing we looked into was fasting. Now we discovered that fasting is also a good way of helping the body to detoxify. And if you want to look into fasting, another good book to get is The Miracle of Fasting, written by Paul Bragg. Another subject which helps you with your health are free radicals. Now, free radicals are molecular sharks that damage the molecules of the cellular brain, the cell's energetic centers, and the DNA. Every time you take a deep breath of air, this creates unstable oxygen molecules in your body, which are described as free radicals. This oxidization process is the same which causes an apple to rot. Fortunately, this is quite normal, and your body possesses a host of free radical quenchers called antioxidants. Free radicals can also be introduced into our bodies through food, alcoholic drinks, cigarettes, coffee, soda pops, and other substances. It therefore becomes necessary for us to supplement our bodies with more antioxidants through our food and nutritional supplements. It's been proved that more than 60 human diseases involve free radical damage, from cancer to heart disease and immune system decline. Free radicals are also the cause of aging, as our ability to naturally produce antioxidants with age declines. Other thing we decided to eliminate was refined sugar. We recently had one of Sylvia's sisters stay with us from Italy, and Claudia was surprised to see how calm and relaxed our children were compared to hers. So one day Sylvia gave our eldest son some sweets, and after 10 minutes he flipped and became hyperactive. Sylvia did this to prove to Claudia that her children weren't bad, they were simply eating the wrong foods. The solution was to cut the sugar out of their diets. Refined sugar and sugary foods produce a myriad of problems, and as Philip Day quotes in his latest book, The ABCs of Disease, sugar is one of the main causes of ADHD, which is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. So don't believe it when they tell you that there's invented a new drug that's going to cure ADHD. Just cut the sugar out of your kids' diets and you'll find that their ADHD will disappear. Children who drink 6 to 8 sodas a day may be ingesting up to 50 teaspoons of sugar from these drinks alone. High sugar diets feed all sorts of fungi, yeast and parasites into the bloodstream, causing rashes, skin blemishes, right through to serious side effects and illnesses. Dr. Neil Ward, a scientist from Guildford University who is at the forefront of additive research, reports, children's disruptive behavior can be linked to food choice. Hyperactivity, attention deficit disorder, antisocial or aggressive behavior in children can be traced back to what they eat. Another thing which is important to do is to alkalize your body. Nobel Prize winner Dr. Otto Warburg proved in the 1930s that acidic bodies are prone to degeneration, oxygen deprivation, and parasites, while alkalized bodies are heavily oxygenated. Like most pioneers, he was criticized and ridiculed by his peers, but proved to be entirely correct. It's interesting to note that a common characteristic of those cultures living long lifespans is an alkalized body system. The ideal balance is 80% alkaline and 20% acid, or a pH of 7.4. Another thing we looked into was chlorophyll, which is oftenly defined as the elixir of life. When we were introduced to the work of Steve Meyerowitz, Sprout Man, we discovered the world of wheatgrass juicing and its incredible benefits. It's reported to increase the function of the heart, affects the vascular system, the intestines, the uterus and the lungs. It's also a tonic and an important medicine for healing bleeding gums and canker sores. It even provides protection from low-level X-ray radiation that comes from TVs, computer screens and hospital equipment. It's a powerful antioxidant and helps in alkalizing the body. And you'll find a lot of this information in Steve Meyerowitz's book, Wheatgrass, Nature's Finest Medicine. Now, the reason for its powerful benefits is the ability of the green plant to capture and process solar energy and make it available to us humans, a process commonly known as photosynthesis. So being healthy is very simple. Man has complicated life by shutting himself in a cube, eating the wrong food and using too many antibiotics, painkillers, injections, etc. This is basically why both pharmacies and hospitals are full of medicines and sick people. These substances are just patching up problems, causing others to happen somewhere else in the body. So just like Dr. Christopher said to all his patients, it's not by going on a diet that you will solve your health problems, you'll become healthy as a result of your eating habits. Now I'd like to briefly touch on the subject of nutritional supplements. Today is becoming a big and bigger business, and it's very, very interesting to explore nutritional supplement world. Now, modern farming practices have reduced the soil's ability to produce nutritious foods. This has been caused by pesticides and fertilizers used to boost the farmer's yield. These toxic chemicals destroy vital microorganisms that break down and release minerals and other nutrients found in fertile soil. The result of this strips us of nourishing food, creating the necessity for nutritional supplements. However, there are tons of different types of supplements on the market, and to tell you the truth, most of them aren't very effective. What we need to do is we need to buy those supplements which are bioavailable. Now, when I say bioavailable, what I mean is your body has to be able to take the nutrients for whatever you're taking. Now, there's a lot of supplements out there. You can, when you go into the pharmacy or the local herb store, they will sell you magnesium or they'll sell you vitamin C and whatever. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to look at the ingredients. You've got to ask the question, where does the vitamin C come from? Because it's a bit like the mineral water thing we talked about. Now, if you drink mineral water, your body does not have the ability to transfer those minerals into a bioavailable way so that your body can take the nutrients out of it. Now, these minerals are just going to be deposited in your body and your body won't be able to assimilate them. So it's the same thing with the vitamin C. Now, if the vitamin C comes from lemons or oranges, and they're saying that that contains vitamin C, and what the supplement contains is orange juice, for example, and consequently the vitamin C, well, then it's a good supplement. But if it just says vitamin C, then it's probably a chemically fabricated vitamin C, which means that it's not bioavailable. So it will do you more harm than good. Now, you've got to watch it because there's lots and lots of supplements out there, and I'd say at least 90% of them are a load of rubbish. So you've got to really learn to read the labels and look for something that's bioavailable. The other thing you will want to try and look at is most of these supplements, the good ones, the ones that are bioavailable, usually come from herbs. And on the bottle, it will actually list the herbs. So you look and you see what herbs are in there, and then the next thing you need to check is, are the herbs organic or not? Because if they're not organic, they either have to be organic or wildcrafted. Wildcrafted meaning that they grew wild in the forest and that. Now, if they're wildcrafted or they're organic, they haven't been treated with chemicals, because that's the other thing. A lot of this stuff gets treated with chemicals, and consequently we may eat lots of apples and oranges every day, but if they're not organic, they've been treated with chemicals, and consequently we're not only eating the apples and the oranges, we're also eating all these toxic chemicals as well, which are not going to do our bodies any good and can cause cancer and all sorts of other things. So when you're choosing your supplements, make sure that they are bioavailable, that they come from organic herbs or wildcraft herbs. That's really the thing to look for. I mean, there are lots of natural juices out there which are very good, such as noni juice, aloe vera juice, limu maui, xango, juice made from the Chinese ninja wolf berries, wheatgrass juices. And there's lots of formulas out there, for example, ancient Chinese medicine formulas, American Indian formulas, or Ayurvedic formulations. And all these products basically come from herbs. So that's what you got to look for. Make sure that any supplement that you take, read carefully the ingredients and make sure that whatever you're going to be taking there is bioavailable. Right, now, in the supplement market and in the papers and that, there's always a big talk of this vitamin B12 and how important is this vitamin B12 is and blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of the supplement companies have basically incorporated vitamin B12 in their supplements. So what's happening is people are encouraged to buy this vitamin B12. They go down the herb store, they buy something with vitamin B12 and they go home and they take it. Now, the question is, where does this vitamin B12 come from? So I've learned to ask myself probably questions that other people don't ask themselves. And so my wife and I led into a research to find out where these companies get the vitamin B12 from. And we came to an interesting discovery. Basically, when people go to the toilet, in their toilet, in their feces, they produce vitamin B12. So what most of the supplement companies do is they go down the local sewer, they buy a load of poo, literally they buy a load of poo, and they bring it back and they put that into the supplement. So that's where the vitamin B12 comes from. So then the next question is, well, where can we find vitamin B12 in the plant world? And you can find vitamin B12 in alfalfa. Now, alfalfa, you can buy alfalfa seeds in your local herb store. You can then sprout those seeds and put them in a salad or just eat them like a salad. And they're very, very nutritious and they contain vitamin B12 and you'll be fine. So you won't be eating other people's poo-poo anymore. So that story is just to put the point across, is that what you take as a supplement has to be bioavailable. Now, one area where you can buy your nutritional supplements from is from network marketing companies. And I do find that a lot of the network marketing companies out there have got some very, very good nutritional supplements. Now, the question is why? And I know there's a lot of people that are very skeptical about network marketing, but they do have some very good products. And it's very simple, the reason why. Now, Sylvia and I have tried a vast array of supplements from all over the world. And so we've really come down to boiling it down to a number of products which we think are very good. And the network marketing system offers most of the best products on the market, simply because network marketing allows the company to sell products directly to the customer without having to advertise. So basically what happens is the distributor, in a certain sense, becomes your health consultant. So it's the only way they're going to sell product is through you or through other people, through direct selling. So it's very important that they sell you something that's going to work for you. So they will probably give you the right product for you and they will follow you through, and this will help you to achieve the result that you're looking for. Now, I remember when I was involved in network marketing, I was selling a weight loss product, and this product was very good, but to most people, the first few days, it made them feel a bit sick and they tended to go to the toilet or throw up and that. So it was very important for me as a distributor, when I sold the product to somebody, for me to call them on day 1 and day 2 and day 3. And I had them do a number of things. I rang them up and they would say to me, "Oh, what's this thing you sold me? I've been throwing up all morning. I've been on the loo all night. I'm really sick. I've decided to pack it all in." Well, if that was happening, I would turn around and say to them, "Well, I can tell you one thing. That's great news, because that means the product's working." And you would give them this encouragement, and this would give them the motivation to continue and to then keep taking the product and consequently get the results. So your network marketing distributor will give you the products that's right for you and follow through, simply because the only way the network marketing distributor has of growing their business is through referrals. So if you get good results, chances are or you may become a distributor or you will refer your friend to somebody else because you have got results. So you don't get that kind of service when you go to the local herb store. Unless you go there regularly, you won't find the guy in the herb store that sold you the aloe vera, for example, is not going to ring you up the next day and find out how you're doing. But with a network marketing distributor, you get this. So that's actually a good thing. So if you have any friends that are in network marketing and they're selling health products, have a look at it and try and find out what they're all about. As chances are, those products can probably help you improve your health.